Hey everyone, this is your friendly neighborhood Peapod, the commentator with the most stones in wrestling, and you are drinking with Moe's.
This is Drinkin at Mo's, where we talk about the pros of pro wrestling in the Midwest while sipping on some brews with blessed beers and wrestling. That's my scene. Death matches and lucha libre, it's also mean. I'm a straight up smart goofball, not no kiss ass. I stand tall when it comes to wrestling. I'm the king. I know every move, every fling. Get ready for a wild time with Drinkin at Mo's, where we don't quit. Drinkin at Mo's, that's where it's at. Like a power bomb, we hit hard, never flat. Fucking right, we're living the dream. Talking about wrestling, always a scream.
All right, everybody, taking time out before we get this show started. I want to thank Reaper Apparel for having Drinking and Mo's be a brand ambassador for their clothing line. They got good stuff. They got t-shirts, they got hoodies, they got beanies, they got lots of great stuff, encouraging everybody to break out of their comfort zone, live their best self, and hey, it's something I try to live every day. Now, be sure when you go and you're filling out your order, use the code Drinking at Moe's, get 10% off, and the link and the code will both be in the description. All right, everybody. Welcome, Drinking at Moe's. Big Mo here. You know the drill. But now, YouTube, like, subscribe, share, comment, hit the bell, all that good stuff, because YouTube's algorithm is a pain in the ass. Where most places you can find your audio podcast too. Today, I'm excited to have with me, out of Ruthless Pro, one of their commentary team, Peapod. How you doing?
Hey Mo, how are you?
Oh, I can't complain. Talking before we recorded, mentioned some of the fun stuff ahead. I didn't mention that actually June 22nd, I'm going to be going to another show for Sammy Callahan's promotion, Wrestling Revolver, their Cage Horrors show, which is actually getting main evented by the Cage of Horrors match with all three of the second gear crew going up against each other.
Hey, sometimes brothers fight, so I
That is
completely
true.
understand. I completely understand. Actually, in the time of this recording, that weekend I was planning on being a part of the debut of Chaotic Combat Wrestling. Unfortunately, some shady promoters and everything, not the people behind it. No, my good brother John Bullard was a part of that, and Scott Jones, the people behind Chaotic Combat. No, unfortunately, they were working with a person outside of Midwest Gore Fest, and that guy was. Unfortunately, during the independent wrestling world, you kind of come with some very carny, scummy, two-handed people. And unfortunately, Chaotic Combat had to get postponed until 2025. But that weekend, actually, by the time you hear this, I would have been already. I'm going to be checking out up in the Detroit area the Clash Wrestling versus Alpha One Wrestling event happening. So yeah, I wasn't going to be booked in Chicago, so I might as well just head up an hour north of me because I'm based out of Northwest Ohio. So I might as well just go up north and see a show and help out and see some great wrestling like I always do.
Oh, yeah. Hell, I'm excited for my show. I'm excited. I was excited about Chaotic Combat. And then, I heard about everything that it had nothing to do with any of the people behind Chaotic Combat at
No,
all.
absolutely not.
But yeah, that was like, God, well, damn it, because I had just recorded with one half of the Bruisers, and we were talking about that before everything happened. So we were both like, oh man, this is going to be fun. And then I see that news break, and I'm like, well, shit.
It's really funny that the Bruisers. I've been seeing them a lot this summer so far. I just saw them. I mean, we had them earlier this year in Chicago for Ruthless Pro Wrestling.
Mm,
And then I saw them at Flophouse, Shine Like a Wizard back in May.
mm.
And I was gonna go see them at Chaotic Combat, and I'll probably end up seeing them in the next couple of Flophouse shows, and also probably Ruthless Pro. We've had them as kind of semi-regulars in RPW. So I love those Bruiser Boys. Very, very unique duo, but very entertaining.
Oh yeah, I've had Mitch Malik on twice now. The one that I recorded with him last week was the second time, so it's always a good time with him. But before we get into too much here, first thing I'd like to start off with everybody is what got you started as a fan, and then I have to flip this around for the commentary side of stuff. But what got you, you know, getting into the business in the form that you're in?
Well, kind of both are folded into each other. So I'll start off when I became a fan. I started. My father got me into wrestling. He owned his own restaurant at one point when I was younger, and he would come home and put on pro wrestling. He would put on WCW Monday Night Nitro, and I had a very staunch 8:30 p.m. Eastern time bedtime, so I would only get to see the first portion of Monday Night Nitro. But I was always infatuated. When I got a little bit older and around middle school, right around the Triple H marrying Stephanie McMahon storyline is when I got into pro wrestling, and I've been a fan since. I've always been fascinated about what I watch, and maybe it had a hand in what I used as a career move for a while. I was a radio broadcaster for 11 years in Northwest Ohio. So, and then COVID kind of hit, and I kind of reached a ceiling in my radio career, and I decided to break away. And now I work as a marketing director for a location. But when I left, I was given an invitation to join Ruthless Pro Wrestling. And ironically, before COVID hit, I had them on. I had the promoter, Chris Kohlenberg, on my radio morning show promoting their very first show that was going to be happening in spring of 2020. We all know what happened, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. But things changed, plans changed, and when I left radio, they sent me an invitation saying, "Hey, we could use your mind, we could use your voice," and it was like it was a labor of love, and I already had things situated in the home front, and I like to talk and I like pro wrestling, and now I have crossed 3 years as commentating. And now in 2024, I'm really trying to break myself out there to do more commentary, whether it's live or in post. So, but Ruthless Pro Wrestling is my home. It's always where I love to be. Death matches is
Mm.
a wild, weird world, and I rather enjoy it. And I love the people that I've been doing it with, and I can't wait to do more, calling more wrestling and helping tell stories.
Oh yeah, no, but like you with me with the podcast, I love talking wrestling, and fairly familiar with Ruthless and Flophouse. And we mentioned before,
Hmm.
I've actually had Schwartzy on twice,
Great
and
man.
I've had a few people on that have come through Ruthless. And with my recording schedule, I might not get to watch as much of it the when it first gets released, but death matches has always been kind of my thing. I mean, hell, I've even somehow developed a little bit of a following in the deathmatch community, which just any success that the show has had just baffles me, because I started out just talking to my friends that are in the business here locally. And then it got to the point where I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to end up just running out of people to talk to. And then I had the Maximo brothers, the SATs, like something of mine on Twitter. And it was right around the time of those matches they had with the Hardys and the Briscoes. I'm like, I remember asking them, I'm like, this might be a long shot, but here. And then it just snowballed from there. And now I've had I've been lucky enough to have like Alex Colon, John Wayne Murdoch, Madman Pondo. I've lost count how many people I've had on from H2O. Like, it's nuts. But yeah, death matches always been my thing. I actually have signed ring worn kick pads of Alex Colon's. I am mid Death Pro. They did a show here in Omaha, and didn't realize that my ticket was an entry into a raffle for an event used item signed by everybody. Didn't realize that I won it until Carver comes up after the show and hands me half a door.
Here, you won this.
Yeah. So I got that's behind the camera here. And, you know, I almost, my wife doesn't really like watching them with me, but a couple of times that she has, I've loved her reactions. Because I think it was H2O were doing the Uncharted Territory, and they have the what was it, the Deathmatch Discovery Gauntlet, and there was one that they had a whole bunch of carpet strips in there, and somebody got Irish whipped into them, and the look on her face just made me laugh my ass off.
Yeah, I kind of understand that. My wife is not a big deathmatch fan herself. She's gone to a couple of wrestling events with me, mostly in AEW. But I completely understand that death matches are not for the light of heart. Unfortunately, I can understand the hate and the weird looks it gets, and maybe sometimes the overreaction of like, oh, it's not real wrestling and everything. And I understand the argument, but there's something about live deathmatch wrestling that I feel like everybody should check out because it's a whole different energy, it's a whole different vibe, and these people are doing some insane stuff. And obviously the basics are there in wrestling, and they decided to just go and step it up a notch. And a lot of those deathmatch wrestlers are very accomplished regular quote unquote pro wrestlers.
Both
Perfect.
Alex Colon and John Wayne Murdoch, both accomplished in both. They just do a lot more now with the death matches. Hell, John Wayne Murdoch just recently winning the Tournament of Survival for
He did.
GCW.
I mean, a perfect example, Atticus Cogar is currently our RPW World Heavyweight Champion, and he is a very accomplished wrestler, very good. Our RPW Rust Belt World Deathmatch Champion, Lou Nixon, out of the UK, is a former MMA fighter himself. It's kind of incredible what these people can do. Randy West, our longest reigning Rust Belt champion. I mean, she's a very successful non-deathmatch women's wrestler. Schwartzy's another one, as mentioned. There's a lot of great crossovers that people end up choosing the role of deathmatch, but they can go toe to toe with anybody who can do it regularly between those ropes.
Oh yeah, like I believe it was Alex Colon that we first talked about this. It's like when it's done right, it's just like any other genre of wrestling. You just got it surrounded by all those deathmatch elements. Like they're telling a story just as good, if not better, than a lot of people out there. They got the craziness going on, yeah, but you'll see oftentimes, they'll like slowly amp it up with the weapons. They'll start with like a chair, and then you'll see doors or glass and nuts. Which before we get into Ruthless, because I know they got a show that you're involved with coming up next month as of recording this. I don't know if I have told you about this, but I will actually be making my commentary debut in August. A friend of mine is putting together a card, a charity benefit for like suicide prevention awareness. And he was like, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I would love to have you do it. I'm like, just tell me when. And the main event is actually going to be featuring Ring of Honor and New Japan star Cheeseburger.
Oh, hey.
So I get to call it cheeseburger match. So that's going to be fun.
Heck yeah. I mean, commentary is not an easy gig. I will say, like, I may have a step up from some other people just because I had that broadcasting experience. So you can kind of hear it in my voice. You can hear it, how I present, deathmatch wrestling is more of a sports presentation style and everything. But like, there's so much more of that, I'm learning more and more as I go. I recently did a seminar with Walker Stewart of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's been incredible help. And I'm really, hoping to, apply a lot of those tips and tricks that he told me that he does all the time. And he's a young cat. He's in his young to mid 20s. I'm almost 40. So, he's been doing great work in New Japan right now. His incredible voice. My partner for RPW, John Bullard, who we mentioned before, has given me a lot of great tips as well and a lot of great style. And, it's all about building, building an attitude, building the story, having that feeling and not taking away from what's the action in there. I use this metaphor almost every interview I do. Good commentary is like curtains on a house. When it's good, it blends the room together. When they're bad, it's obviously you can see it from a mile away. Same goes to commentary. When it's bad commentary, takes away from the match. Your job is to help enhance and tell the audience the reason why these competitors are wrestling and just add to it. You're not supposed to take away from it. So that's the biggest tip that I can give you for someone who's just cracking into it. Don't make it about you. Have fun with it and get as much information you can beforehand and day of show. Go around, go ask every wrestler, what can I put over? Any special moves, any special requests, any stories, anything. It will help the commentary out, so much. And your job's to help put them over even more and make the audience care even more about them.
Oh yeah, and you know what? You beat me to it because that was going to be the thing that I asked next was about any tips. So hey, already beat me to it right there. Because
I try.
I'm a mix of excited and nervous. Like I hear oftentimes with the wrestlers, those butterflies are good because I think it was one of the Road Warriors was like, if you're getting ready down the road and you don't end up having those butterflies, that's probably your time to get out.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. That was the same when I was in radio. That's the same as when I'm doing in commentary. I get very excited, get very nervous. I'm very hard on myself, but I know I'm doing something right when I'm starting to get more and more wrestlers direct messaging me or fans or people that I've connected with message me and go, "You're doing a great job. This is awesome. I love what you did with my match. Thank you so much." It means a lot. That means I'm doing something right.
Oh yeah, and I take it kind of in the same fashion with the podcast is like when people I tipped over the stand here, but when I get people reaching out to me instead of me reaching out to them, I'm like, and then in the process of the interviews hearing at the end they had so much fun, they liked how it was like I try to keep it where it's like two friends chatting over a drink or two. And I'm like, the first time that happened, when it happened and I didn't even tell them that was my aim, I'm like, yes, win.
That's always what I feel like when I was doing interviews and everything. It's just having a conversation the same way we're conversing. It's the same way we would converse in person. We just have microphones and cameras in front of us. That's it.
Yep,
and heck, I'm the one who reached out to you to do the interview to just kind of spread the good word of Ruthless Pro Wrestling and spread the thoughts and attitudes and voice of my own brand. So yeah, I appreciate it. You're doing a phenomenal job.
I appreciate that. I can be my own worst critic sometimes, but I love getting to spread people, wrestlers, commentators, promotions from all over outside of their general area. So it's like people with like IWTV that might not have realized about them before. They're like, oh, they're on that. I'm going to need to check them out.
Yeah. And that's my goal is to, help. If we get one more fan, we get one more like, one more follow, one more viewer for our shows, and I really feel in 2024, Ruthless Pro Wrestling is going to be the destination for any kind of independent wrestling, whether you're into deathmatch or not. I think we have something very special. I really, truly believe it. We have our show coming up at the world famous Berwyn Eagles coming up at on July 20th, called Scum of the Earth. And we already have a handful of matches announced for it. By the time this episode comes out, more will be coming out. We have multiple titles on the line, and a few surprises and first time matchups that I'm very excited to call and witness in person. So it's going to be a good time.
Oh, yeah. And, 3 of them that are out right now that, well, first one, since we kind of already talked a little bit about him, Atticus Cogar versus Jake Christ, my buddy Jake Christ. I love that guy.
And he's a great dude. And sorry to interrupt you. He's a great dude. And the match itself was supposed to be at Miasma back at New Jersey during Mania weekend. Unfortunately, Jake kind of tweaked a couple of things, couldn't make it out, which is understandable. WrestleMania week is a very busy time for all of wrestling, whether you're a fan or a worker. So, but we decided now we're going to run it back to Ohio boys, going to be fighting out for the big orange, as we like to call it, because the belt itself is on orange leather. And it's going to be happening at in Berwyn Eagles and in the Chicagoland, Illinois area. So it should be a good time.
Oh yeah, that is gonna be a hard hitting affair right there. And you mentioned the big orange kind of reminded me of the old school Taz FTW belt with the orange. They're gonna love it. And Jake Christ was actually involved in the first ever actual death match that I ever got to see live, and it was for Revolver, and he went up against Joel Bateman.
Ooh, yeah.
And it was funny because the match before it was a Monsters Ball match, so there was shit all over the place. Like they do a lot. They're cleaning debris out of there. Jake just runs in, it's like, fuck it, leave it, let's go. And I'm just like, oh. And yeah, let's just say fire was involved.
Oh, I'm sure. Jake Christ is the fire starter. It makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, like they were in the corner. They had 4 folding chairs bridged like 2 panes of glass on there, and then Bobby rolls in. I see him pull out a thing of lighter fluid, and I'm like, oh fuck. Lit the glass on fire, and I got a picture with Joel after the match, still all bloody and everything. I'm like, dude, that was awesome.
I love Joel Bateman. He's a fantastic individual. He is crazy as hell. He put on a huge sleeper match from Miasma with Danny Darko from the UK. The Blood Fighter, he's part of that Blood Fighter I guess team, you call it, faction. I don't know, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's like Alex Colon and Judge Joe Dredd, and there's Clint Margera, Joel Bateman. So it's like representatives from all across the world as part of that Blood Fighter team, I guess you could say, like sponsored athletes, so to speak, which I absolutely love that we're seeing that in deathmatch and in wrestling in general.
Oh, totally. And just thinking, Jake recently had a run with the Revolver title, and not only does Atticus have the title that he currently holds there in Ruthless, he also, at the last ICW No Holds Barred show, won a title there. So becoming a little bit of a belt collector. So it's going to be interesting to see how that match goes. Because both guys, they can go in both death matches and just regular pro wrestling. So it'll be interesting to see how long will it go just being regular, or will they, Fast and Furious, just right with the deathmatch type stuff.
I think Atticus Koger has openly said that I think some of his deathmatch work is starting to wind down a little bit. So
Hmm.
I think he wants to prove that he can be, what he claims as the most dangerous professional wrestler. So if that means that he's going to whip out some skewers, if that means he's going to whip out, a door, or he's going to, wrestle somebody and out wrestle somebody, much like Jake Chris, time will tell. I'm
Oh,
very
yeah.
interested in that match for sure.
Oh yeah, no, and it makes total sense. The longer you go in death matches, you kind of start wondering, the toll that professional wrestling already takes on a body. Then you add the that much more with death matches. So as careers start going, you start wondering, how long am I going to go in the death match stuff? So I can totally understand where he's coming from with that. Now, another one out of one that's announced so far that I'm like, for those that might not be as familiar with Ruthless Pro, the guy, one of the, actually, hell, both of the guys in this particular match, it's like, there's going to be some craziness. Schlack and Eric Dillinger. Holy moly.
That was the very first match we announced when Scum of the Earth tickets went on sale. And Schlack is starting to become almost a mainstay in RPW. And if you don't know what Schlack is, imagine a person named Schlack. You got that thought in your head? That's exactly what Schlack is. This dude
Oh, yeah.
is built like a Mack truck. He's built like a tank. He is a dangerous individual. He is a absolute just psychopath. But Eric Dillinger, and I really enjoy Eric Dillinger. He's one of those guys that can do it all. He's an incredible wrestler. He can high fly for a man his size and shape. I mean, I think he's at least, I want to say, like, I'm just under 6 foot. He's at least 6'3", maybe 6'4". Incredible height, kind of lanky, but strong as an ox. He is very underrated, and I think Eric Dillinger is going for that, hopefully that first W in RPW. Unfortunately, has had some great matches with guys like Otis Koger. He's teamed up with Dale Patricks against the Bruisers, but he still hasn't gotten that, that first win. He's gotten close many a times, but it's a true test for Eric Dillinger to see him face off someone like Schlack. I'm very excited. It's going to be a wild time. Public Animal #1, Schlack versus Public Enemy #1, Eric Dillinger at Scum of the Earth.
Oh, that right there, man. Like, I'm very familiar with Schlack, and I just remember every time I see him, I'm like, I'm just thankful I'm not the other guy, because like I keep on having, and I laugh about it, but I have this image in my head that I'm like, if I were that guy, I would be hoping that I brought a change of pants to the event, because I was probably going to be shitting myself.
Schlack is a very intimidating individual. He really is.
I can definitely agree with that. Although, before we get into one of the other matches, I've had experience meeting a few wrestlers that it's like, when I'm going up to talk to them, like, and I'm waiting, yeah, intimidating. Like, I remember meeting Dan Severn one time, and like in the line, I'm like, holy shit. But then getting to talk to him, like, dude, nicest dude ever. And again, with like, I got his I got a sign figure from Swerve. But
Nice.
like that feud when they started out with him and Hangman, one sadistic son of a bitch, but nicest dude ever when I actually got to talk to him. And same with Bronson Reed. I had a short little episode with him, and like, dude, there's a reason they call him Big Bronson Reed. And you get to talk to him, dude. Nicest dude ever.
There
So,
hasn't been any wrestler that I have met that we have booked or have been a part of an RPW show that I'm like, oh, I hope they don't ever come again. Every single person I've had very bondings with. I mean, it's no secret that I'll openly say this. You know, I've played Magic the Gathering with Remington Roar. I think as much as he's a psychopath inside the ring, I think Otis Koger is probably one of the most personal people to talk to. A lot of the wrestlers, you'd be very surprised that when the lights are up and the bell rings, are very they're very angry, very intimidating, very tough. When things are relaxed, you'll be quite surprised at how a lot of wrestlers
oh
act,
yeah,
which is always incredible to me still because at the end of the day, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of
yeah.
their work. I'm a fan of what they do. But they are also my coworkers in a sense.
Oh
So,
yeah.
we both depend on each other. I depend on information from them to help them do better on commentary to make sure more people get excited for them. And it's a very interesting back and forth between us.
Oh, I can imagine. And hell, I know my wife and I were just actually having this talk last night that it's like it is interesting how some of the guys that in front of the camera when the lights are on and everything play like the biggest assholes. Outside of that, like behind the camera, you know, meeting everybody, nice as can be. It's kind of a funny contrast there.
It usually is. It's usually the nicest people can play the best assholes.
Yeah,
Because I
it
think
is.
we know what would get under our skin. Therefore, they can turn it around and do it.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely have that ability. Now, me being a fan of tag team wrestling that I am, Midwest Scum versus 440 Blue. Now, okay, like I've said before, my recording schedule gets nuts. And, you know, I don't get to watch as much of stuff as but I am familiar with 440. But the blue and the yellow, it's starting to remind me of back in the day with the NWO Hollywood and the Wolf Pack. Is that what they got going on there? Sort of
It's
that?
uh it's very eerily similar. But it's a lot of mind games as well. So obviously we all know that 440 is probably one of in the last like 5 to 10 years, one of the most maybe next to the Bullet Club, biggest independent faction on the scene, especially in the deathmatch world.
Oh yeah.
Ricky Shane Page decided to break away from 440 at an event during Circle Six's infancy when Atticus Cogar won their title. But then now Atticus and Ricky Shane Page has now been following each other across the scene. I mean, Ricky Shane Page helped Midwest Scum indirectly back at this time means war in January of 2022 during the tag team death match of Midwest Scum versus the Cogers. Had kind of an effect on then making Midwest Scum win. Ricky Shane Page and Atticus Cogar has been at each other's throats. It got to the point where Atticus Cogar became the new face, the new leader of 440, changed the color scheme from green to yellow. Well, what's another color that makes yellow? Blue. What did Ricky Shane Page did is then started saying, oh, 440 is not dead. I never left 440. I am 440. Brought in his longtime tag team partner Vincent Nothing from Faith in Nothing with him. Grabbed the cousin of the Cokers, Atticus and Otis, Christian Napier, and then brought in the very first woman into 440 in Big Al Alice Crowley, and now they are the 440 faction. Speed up to RPW now. Ricky Shane Page has made it known that he wants the RPW Tag Team Championships, which are currently being held by Midwest Scum and Back at Miasma, now available on IWTV. 440 Yellow have invited Zach Thomas into 440 Yellow. So Yeah, we have all these intertwining connections between the histories, both in ring and out of ring, between members of both 440s with Ricky Shane Page, Atticus Cogar, and Gregory Iron, who was a longtime member of 440 and the real life brother of Zach Thomas, and all these bits and pieces coming together. Scum of the Earth, we're finally going to see Midwest Scum versus 440 because now, and proper 440, Ricky Shane Page and Vincent Nothing, Faith in Nothing, which originally they were going to face off against Midwest Scum and Miasma. And again, we mentioned that, WrestleMania week is a very busy week. Ricky Shane Page could not compete. So he threw in Big Al in his replacement. And after some shenanigans and craziness throughout Miasma, we are finally going to get that match, Midwest Scum versus 440 Blue, Scum of the Earth, July 20th at the Burnwood Eagles.
That is gonna be intense. Like, each one of the three matches that has been announced so far, all like, I am going to need to be making sure I'm like paying attention for when that one's coming up, because I'm like, damn, I need to be watching those three matches in particular. But there's still even more to come, because like we're a little ways out. We got a little.
There's still more to come. I mean, we recently just announced that Judge Joe Dredd, after his attacks and everything, his match with Matt Tremont, he's so-called the new Bulldozer, allegedly, from Judge Joe Dredd. He is now going to be taking on Brooklyn Black Death, Casanova Valentine, which is going to be a wild-ass match. And then I'll give you a match early. But by the time this episode comes out, it will probably announce, but I think you're going to be very interested for this. This is a first-time ever matchup. This has never happened before. And it's going to be two people with very hybrid wrestling styles. Malcolm Monroe III, very impressive individual, can tag team with Tommy Vendella with the Pillars, can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the deathmatch scene, can high fly for the best of them, can technical wrestling with the best of them. He's going to be taking on a man that is probably winding down his career, but he still have a handful of matches left in him. He's going to be going on one-on-one with a man known as Drake Younger.
Ooh, yeah. Very familiar with both of those guys. Malcolm Monroe III being, at least at this moment, one half of the H2O tag team champions. So been very familiar there, and all his work there with Ruthless, and then Drake Younger. I mean, the guy, his reputation speaks for itself when it comes to the deathmatch world.
Yes, sir.
So that match between the two of them, with the mix of styles that Malcolm Monroe III can bring to the table, matched up with Drake Younger, that is going to be interesting.
We also got a couple more matches that are going to be announced. You can check them out. Follow us on social media. All the links at ruthlesspro.com. We will have a Kamikaze title match. If still champion after recently, by the time this episode comes out, we had an event called Stunting on Him, where Remington Roar will be defending the Kamikaze Championship against a man known as Kamikaze. Well, if he continues holding that title, he will be defending it at Scum of the Earth. And then we also got a couple of other matches that are going to wet the whistle and be very interesting, especially coming into our big event coming up in August. It is our second annual event. It's called King of the Kill. It's going to be a huge weekend up in maybe Michigan. It's going to be August 23rd and 24th. We're going to kick things off August 23rd with a little bit of an appetizer with our friends over at Flophouse for their show called Bad Motherfucker. And then afterwards, it's gonna be all night. It's gonna be if you partake smoke sessions with Darren McCarty and Mint Cannabis. We're gonna have an all night movie marathon brought to you by Severn Films. And then the morning of August 24th, we'll have our Weapons Expo and Weapons Building with our very own Fuckery Fairy, Indrid Cold. And then afterwards, we're gonna have also live music from some incredible music, great food from Lane's Pizzeria, and then King of the Kill 2. Sponsored by Jobber Radio, Iberian Championship Belts, Deathmatch Worldwide, and Mr. Lidl's Productions. It's going to be an epic time, a one-night deathmatch tournament. And Tommy Vendetta was the very first King of the Kill winner. So far, we've only announced, by the time this episode comes out, we'll probably have a couple of more, but we've only announced 3 competitors so far, which is our RPW Rust Belt Deathmatch World Champion Lou Nixon. We also have Matt Tremont, the Bulldozer, and we also have a man named Schlack as part of the tournament, and we still have more competitors.
Oh boy, that right there. 3 names that, yeah, that's going to be nuts. Matt Tremont, if I've been lucky enough, out of all of my personal deathmatch Mount Rushmore, I've had all but 2 on the show. And those 2, Matt Tremont and Nick Gage.
Oh wow. Yeah, you can't get any bigger than those 2, honestly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like, I've been lucky enough to mention Alex Cologne. It took me almost a year, maybe a little over, for John Wayne Murdoch, but I got it done.
Nice.
And guys like Madman Pondo, like he tried to downplay me calling him a legend, but I respect being humble. But when people think of a deathmatch Mount Rushmore, more often than not, you are in it.
Pondo is something else. That can be sure, and he's a very dangerous individual, and he looks great right now. Have you seen him? He's almost like a shell of his former self, which is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, no, happy for him, and him helping all sorts of people getting over to Japan. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And you bring up Flophouse.
Mm-hmm.
Been familiar with them. Been lucky enough to chat with Schwartzy on a couple of occasions. Nothing but love for the guy, and they got a good thing going there with Flophouse. Very entertaining stuff.
It's just fun vibes and fun pro wrestling. It's also a place for a lot of young upstarts to do some matches as well. Obviously, we mentioned the Bruisers. Another cat that I really enjoyed that I got to call his match recently. It's Shine Like a Wizard. Is a young man named LaDon Sanders, who allegedly is the long lost descendant of Colonel Sanders. I'm always for getting free food. I'm also getting free food during my commentary matches. But LaDon Sanders, more importantly, is a very good wrestler and very fun wrestler in between those ropes. A lot of other great wrestling happened during Shine Like a Wizard. I did that show solo, which was my first time I ever done commentary solo. It was definitely different, and I don't mind trying it again, but it's very difficult, and it gives me even more respect that someone like Joey Styles
I was gonna bring him up,
events solo. So, but I like better working with a partner. I like to bounce off of somebody.
That is pretty much what I'm looking forward to with my commentary debut, is because I got a couple of partners that, one I know pretty well, because it's actually not going to be our first time in front of a microphone together, so that'll be fun. And hell, I actually have already recorded an episode with him that'll release the same week I'm going to be releasing your episode. So it'll fun little week for some extra stuff, and my birthday week that particular week. So little something to celebrate the whole birthday, which I'm going to be turning 41.
Mazel tov.
Yes, but that actually brings up a thing that I was just thinking of, as I've had this talk with a couple people, that when it comes to wrestling, especially on the just getting started, there's been talk here in Omaha of people using supposedly untrained or not fully trained talent, but it's like, when you're just getting started out there, graduating from training school, there's going to be times where it's like you're going to need people to, you know, take a little bit of a chance on you, because if how are you going to get the experience in the matches if nobody's going to book you, since you literally have only been in your training school?
It's a very difficult, and I couldn't imagine what someone is trying to do to get themselves out there. I mean, I'm trying not to take any bumps myself. So but I still help out every show. I help set up chairs. I've helped set up plenty of rings. I've helped clean up many of matches as well. You'll find me after every RPW show with a broom in hand, sweeping up all the stuff. And there's been many times that I have done overnight cleanings for certain events, because of some people claiming that they're going to help and then they ended up bouncing or whatever. It's if you really want to be in this world, you really want to work hard to do that. Be respectful when needed be, say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, when it needs to be, and it's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Sometimes some more than others, depending on what you want to do. But all you can really do is bet on yourself, work on your craft. Take any critique, good or bad, from sources that hold their weight.
Yeah.
To do that, not listening to the trolls on Twitter
Yeah.
about it, because what do they know? Listen to your peers, listen to your elders, quote unquote. The veterans, and take things where you can. And just keep grinding, because eventually you don't know where you're going to be at. And pro wrestling is what I'm learning about. It's all about who you know.
Yeah.
If you have the skills to back it up as well, definitely helps. But it's who you know. So getting yourself in front of best people as you can, and really putting time in your craft. Not do car promos. Buy yourself a little bit of a ring light off of Amazon, like I have right here. For $20. Takes a little pride in some of your work. Work very hard on your stuff. And go from there. While I've only been doing this for 3 years, and I'm trying to break out more, but I've already learned a whole heck of a lot. And learning the ins and outs of the day-to-day stuff for RPW, and then other companies as well. You got to work hard and understand what you're trying to do, because at the end of the day, you are an artist and you're trying to get other people to be interested in your art.
Oh yeah. And hell, the same thing goes with the podcast here, because I know I've had people that they've given little hints like, okay, maybe you could try this, or like I have a name game category that I have, and at first when I started off, it was kind of random names that I was just coming up with when I was trying to think of what I was going to talk to the person about. But then somebody was like, why don't you theme it towards the guests? Like all the deathmatch people I've had on. It's like, so I just pick, big names that in the deathmatch community. And then as more people have come on, I've been able to theme it towards, not only big in deathmatch, but they've also been on the show. So, those little things and, little hints and tips that it's like, taking that in stride, because they're letting you know stuff that's going to help you, and not, just trying to run you down.
I agree.
Well, speaking of that name game, I have some names here that, I give you the name, you give me quick thoughts on the person.
Okay.
So first one, talked about him a little bit. The Duke of Hardcore, John Wayne Murdoch.
I think he's one of the most decorated deathmatch wrestlers out there, and I think he does he gets a lot of flack for no reason because he's not as maybe big or or as impactful, quote unquote, because he's taking on matches with women or some other bullshit. I think that John Wayne Murdoch is an incredible deathmatch wrestler, and he will be going down as one of those greats.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. Just on the deathmatch side, but regular wrestling on top of that, because death matches. I think I saw a graphic that was made after Tournament of Survival that he is now the person with the most deathmatch tournament wins out there at like 9 or 10.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
I think it's like that. It's Jobber Radio does a very great job, and not only the presentation but the coverage of the deathmatch world. And I highly recommend anybody not only subscribe to obviously Drinking at Moe's, but also Jobber Radio as well.
Oh, most definitely. I believe I already am, but if not, I will be going as soon as we're done recording here. But one last thought I had on John Wayne Murdoch, because, I've also been lucky enough to meet a guy that, fancies himself the indie god, but, Matt Cardona. But the thing with John Wayne Murdoch, he's got just as busy a schedule. And so I would personally put him right up there with, sort of an indie god sort of level, because guy's a damn machine with the schedule he keeps.
He does. Is very well. And I feel like Matt Cardona is a perfect example of betting on yourself
Yeah, definitely.
and building your own brand. He's done that in spades and really has done a lot more than a lot of people give him credit for. And while the gimmick does do a very good job of getting irritating and getting under people's skin, which is definitely what he's trying to do, I think Matt Cardona is a very successful wrestler himself.
Oh, most definitely. Hell, he is part of the little group of people that first proved that getting released by WWE isn't the figurative death nail in a career that it had seemed to be before him. He has proven that you bet on yourself and what you can do, and you put in that work, you can be just as, if not more, successful.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Next up, and I guess I should have mentioned, theming this towards the guest, each of these guys, like what I hinted, not only deathmatch related, but they've all been on the show as well.
Awesome.
Next one up, the legend Madman Pondo.
I think Madman Pondo has done a lot for this business and keeps on giving back to this business, especially with basically teaming up with the amount of people that is now under the Bakagaijin banner in Big Japan, and giving a really a lifelong dream to a lot of these wrestlers. So I think it is very good at showing, that maybe his career might be more behind him than in front of him. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to stop giving back to the business.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. And, you bring up, helping people get over to Big Japan. Two people that I can think of right off the top of my head who have been in that category that he's helped get over there. They've also both been on the show, Dale Patricks and Akira.
Both incredible. Both incredible individuals. I'm a big fan of Akira, and Dale Patricks was our inaugural Rust Belt champion. So two men that have done a lot and are keep on working damn hard in their craft.
Oh yeah. I not too long ago had Akira on, and that was like, I love all the episodes I get to record. Yeah, I'm my own worst critic a lot of times, like I've said, but especially some of those names at the level of like Akira, of John Wayne Murdoch, Madman Pondo, when I'm getting these guys on, there's that part of me at the end that's like, dude, that was awesome.
I love it. That's what I like to do, especially with my commentary as well.
No, yeah. Next up, the first big name in the deathmatch community that I had on, one of my personal favorites, and I've actually got to see him live a couple times at Revolver, the Blood Fighter Alex Colon.
I've called one Alex Colon match, and that was part of a triple threat during Unsanctioned Pro, a show called Counterfeit that we did as a kind of once again an appetizer for King of the Kill weekend that we did. I think Alex Colon is very successful for what he's done, and I like the world that he is in now. I would not mind calling more Alex Colon matches, but he's another one of those wrestlers that he can do it very well in between those ropes, and he can do it well with weapons. And I think with the Blood Fighter banner behind him as well, he's just going to get more and more dangerous.
Oh yeah, hell, both times that I've got to see him live, it was actually him teaming up with the group Red in Revolver, which is him, Macklin, Ricky Shane Page, and Killer Kelly against the Second Gear crew.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, like, I joked, and I've actually got to tell each of the Second Gear crew this, that their matches might as well be sponsored by Home Depot. They loved it, by the way. But, that's just saying, shit, the stuff that gets thrown around and the craziness in their matches. I've seen Matthew Justice jump off of 2 different scaffolds. Yeah, craziness. So getting to see all that live, getting to see Alex Colon in person, which is always a thrill for me, getting to see people that I've had on in person doing their matches and stuff. Hopefully I get more in. Revolver does a good job of bringing a lot of those in. So
Revolver is one of those starting to become one of the top of the food chain independents. So Revolver does some great stuff. I wouldn't mind going and check out a Revolver show or even working a Revolver show, but I'd like to go see it one as a fan first.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a huge damn party. I've been to a handful lately, especially since the podcast, and yeah, it's just always a good time. And yeah, they're quickly becoming like one of those top notch, like top of the ladder independent promotions for sure. And all that, it doesn't help. It helps, I should say, all the connections that Callahan has, all over the wrestling world, getting to bring all those guys in. So, but they do a damn good job.
Callahan has been in the business for quite some time, so he's made those connections, especially everywhere he's gone. So he's been very successful for what he's done.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Last but not least for the name game here, good mutual friend of the both of ours, Schwartzy.
I think Schwartzy is a man that grinds very hard for what he does. He's very loyal to the people that he wants to be loyal for. He really believes in making sure that people do get their good times in the ring, the good connections. And he is also a man that is constantly reinventing himself. And I think this form of Schwartzy is probably the most form of Schwartzy. And now he's getting, sponsored by a lot of great brands. Whether you're into, marijuana or not, it's very impressive that Mint Cannabis, that has multiple locations across the country, does very well. I obviously we speak about Darren McCarty, an actual legend in the hockey world, but is doing a lot more, giving back to the communities of not only wrestling but marijuana as well, and for the uses that he has done. He's been also sponsored by non-alcoholic beverages, which is always really good, especially with people that are decide not to go the route of alcohol and still likes the taste and the uniqueness of brewing and everything. I think Schwartzy does, and he's also just the most charismatic person on any card.
Oh, most definitely. And yeah, like, okay, it's marijuana is not legal here in Nebraska, but there's some surrounding states. And I always just tell people that it's like, okay, if it's legal where you're at, treat it like you would if you drank alcohol and just don't be stupid.
I agree.
And if it's not legal where you're at, again, just don't be stupid.
I mean, we're all adults at this point in life, so whatever you put in your system is none of my business as long as it
Yeah.
doesn't have an adverse effect to the ones around you
Mm-hmm.
or myself and the ones around me as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I partake here and there. I'm kind of a lightweight when it comes to booze, when it comes to weed. So, but the times that I have used them in moderation, I've enjoyed myself. So everything in moderation, including moderation, and that's how I feel about it.
Oh, yeah. Nope. I'm right there with you. All right. Now I got some random questions. Some might be wrestling related, some might not be. Some might have absolutely nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far. That's why they're random. So I give you the question, first answer that pops into your head.
Okay.
First one, craziest in match moment that you have been able to call.
Oh man.
There's probably a lot to choose from.
There's a lot. I think it was the first time that I ever called in the H2O Center in New Jersey. And that was last year for a show we called Street Trash because I thought it was the first time I ever gone east for anything. That, and also I guess the first time we ever did the Berwyn Eagles, because that is a legendary venue for wrestling. So I think it's more location wise than necessarily match wise for
No,
me at least.
no, I can understand that. I know H2O Center, that's like for me with the friendships I built over there at H2O, that's like legit bucket, like wrestling bucket list for me to even just go to a show, let alone, maybe getting a chance at commentary or whatever it might be. But being able to be there and, hell, like I said, get to see some of the people I've had on this show live in person, bucket list level for me, for sure. So I can totally understand that. I mean, I've seen some crazy moments live, like hell. All I really got to do is say 3 letters, SGC, and you can imagine some of the moments that I've probably seen with those guys. So whether it be moments or venues, yeah, there. If I ever got to be in any of those venues, yeah, that would be pretty nuts. All right, now I can understand, the wrestling business can take up a lot of time, whether it be, in show, preparing for one, traveling to a show. But my question for you, hobbies that you have outside of that, if any.
I am wonderfully married to a beautiful woman for almost 10 years. So it's spending time with her. I am enjoying slowing down and things and hoping to do more like traveling and camping. I mentioned it before. I'm an avid fan and nerd. So I like sci-fi stuff. I love Doctor Who. I love Magic the Gathering. I enjoy that as well. I used to be really big into comic books. I still am. I have comic book tattoos. I still read stories and teams and stuff like that, and the occasional comic book movie if I or television show that if I like the characters and whatnot. I like a little bit of retro gaming. I have one of these retro emulating devices, so I really like those as well. I like to just chill, and I love music. Obviously, being a former radio personality, I still love listening to music. So that's some of the hobbies that I like to enjoy and partake in.
Most definitely. I know retro gaming. I pick back up a few, but I like literally behind the camera here, I got the PlayStation 1, I got the Nintendo 64, and a bunch of games for both. And I also got this retro 3 thing that like can play Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, or Sega Genesis. I don't have so much on the Sega side, but I do enjoy getting to pick those up every now and then. And on the comic book side, I haven't really collected as much as like back growing up. But, especially now with, I've been trying to build up or rebuild my Ninja Turtle collection from when I was growing up. My parents sold off a bunch, bastards. I've been lucky enough. I have the hardback copy of the whole Last Ronin story. I have a copy of the comic book with the first appearance of Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady. I actually have the Funko Pops of both the Michelangelo one, signed by the guy that voiced him in the original cartoon, and the guy behind Splinter in the first 2 movies.
Right on.
I've been little bit of a nerdy side for me. My wife does whenever she comes down here and sees all this. She's like, nerd. But hey, she bought the shelves here that I got all the stuff on. So I'm like, hey, you're supporting me. All right. So a lot of traveling in the wrestling business, a lot of road trips out there, going to different places, or getting to travel outside of wrestling. What are some road trip must-haves?
Definitely backup batteries. You definitely want to do all those. Road snacks is very important. Definitely deodorant and multiple changes of underwear. And I always pack the amount of clothes that I need and then extra pairs just in case something happens. I am a big purveyor of Gold Bond, especially if you're going to be sitting in a car a very long time. And then stuff for your breath and everything. So those are the must-haves.
And you bringing up road trip snacks, yes, always a must-have there. What are some of your favorites there? Because I know I got my favorites.
Of what again? I'm sorry.
Snacks. The road
Snacks.
trips.
I'm a big purveyor of sweet and salty, so I'll get something from like a pretzel, or I'll get some kind of good potato chip of some sort, and then I always will do some kind of like gummy snack. So I'll do like a Sour Patch Kid
I do enjoy
variety. So that's kind of my go-tos.
I have happened on a couple gas stations here that have sour gushers, and I'm like, oh, I tried them once out of curiosity. Dude, I literally, any chance I have to get those, I'm getting them now. Because what kind of like the Sour Patch Kids, I do enjoy those candies, which I'm not too much of a candy person anymore, but those and peanut butter cups. I freaking love peanut butter cups.
Same.
All right. Now, with the name of a show like I have, I would feel weird if I didn't have this question. Favorite drink, whether it be alcoholic or non, because I always try to tell people just because it says drinking at Moe's does not mean that it has to be alcoholic.
I like me if it's alcoholic, I like me a good amber beer. I like a craft brew as well. But if you're going off the shelf, I like a good Yingling or Modelo is usually my go-tos. If for non-alcoholic, I like non-dairy milk because regular milk makes my tummy hurt. But also I like a good seltzer water as well.
Okay. Yeah, me, I've actually been drinking one of my personal favorite beers here. They don't sponsor me, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Kona Big Wave.
I'm gonna reach out to them. Put a press kit together, you'll be good.
I actually have. I haven't heard back from them yet. I might
See,
need to
go.
reach back out. But non-alcoholic, I am a bit of a Dr. Pepper fiend.
Oh, okay. I enjoy good soda. I've been trying to cut back, and the only time I drink soda is when I order fast food. So, but I'm really trying to cut back on both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it just a good Topo Chico or seltzer water of some sort.
Oh yeah. No, that's I as well have been attempting to cut back. Some days I'm a little more successful than others, but that's beyond the point there.
Mm-hmm.
My wife likes to tell me I got a problem. I just tell her as long as I got some, I ain't got a problem. All right. Last but not least here, best advice you have for anybody wanting to break into wrestling, whether it be commentary, whether it be just doing a podcast, getting to interview people like we are now.
Do it. Like, just study up and do well, and start in your local community and build from there. You're not going to get great overnight. You're gonna fuck up. You're gonna trip and fall, and but just start small, start what you can, help out where you can, and go from there.
Oh yeah, nope. I can agree a lot because I've lived it. Because especially starting out, it's like just doing it because if you got a passion for it and you want to share that, that's a great thing. But going ahead and just doing it, because if you sit there and you stew in it for too long, you're going to end up talking yourself out of it.
I agree.
Like, I've seen it a lot. And yeah, I'll admit some of my early episodes, I think I refuse to even watch them because I just pick myself apart.
I do that with commentary. I tell people that if they want to get an RPW, watch from Inked in Blood on. But if they want to watch everything from RPW, I'm not going to stop them. But I personally can't listen to some of my old commentary. It's when Inked in Blood was our very first time we ever did something live on IWTV, and I always work better in a live environment, or at least live to tape. I don't like something that's been post production and I kind of already know what happened. I want to be, in the moment during it. So I work better without a safety net.
Oh, I can agree to that because your reactions when it's live and you're not knowing the outcomes, you get those genuine reactions that people just love hearing out of the commentary.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is about all I have. But before we go, where can people find you social media wise? So if they don't already have their eyes on you and where you're going, they can go ahead and get them there.
If you want to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, it's all on the same username. It's Peapod calls the number 4 and the letter U. Peapod calls for you. And then if you want to inquire about either live commentary or post-production commentary, it's Peapod calls for you at gmail.com.
All right. We'll get all of that in the description. But like I said, that is about all I have. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me tonight. Best of luck out there with, Ruthless and Flophouse. I look forward to seeing lots of great stuff coming from both of those.
Thank you, Mo. And if we ever cross paths in person, we'll definitely have a drink together.
I look forward to it. Thank you again.
Appreciate it.